Okay, so today we're going to be going over drawing and shading an eye from a photograph. So a couple of things that you're going to want to think about before you get started is, first, the shape of the eye is really important, especially if you want it to look like a specific person. So when I look at this photograph, I'm going to notice that the front, from the tear duct going back, part of the eye is fairly angular. The part of the eye that's right over the iris is somewhat flat, although it has a little bit of a curve to it, and then the back side is pretty curved. And then the whole underneath side is fairly curved. I do want to pay attention to this little indentation right here going into the tear duct. That's what's going to make it look like a specific person. So we've got the iris. The iris is the colored part of the eye. We've got the pupil in the middle, which is the dark part in the middle of the eye. The iris is a sphere, and its placement within the white of the eye is going to change. So in this photograph, the model's head is tilted down and their eyes are looking up. So notice how there's actually space from the bottom of the iris to this bottom lid. A lot of times the iris, if the person was looking straight ahead, the iris would be more balanced kind of in the middle of the eye. So you always want to pay attention, where is the iris compared to the white of the eye. There's almost always going to be a glare in the pupil. This photograph has two big glares and one really small glare. Notice that the glare is cutting through both the iris and the pupil on both of these, and the glares are normally going to take the shape of the reflective sources that are in the room. Almost always the edge of the iris is going to look like it's been outlined, or it's going to be darker. That's where the iris is actually round, and that's where it's going back. And so it makes it look, it actually makes the edge look like it has been outlined a little bit darker. You're going to shade the entire iris and the pupil. You want to pay attention to the value. You want to pay attention to subtle little variations. So if there were other reflections within the eye, you would want to try and draw those in. If there's color changing, little flecks of different colors within in the eye, and you can see that in your photograph, you want to try and draw that in as much draw and shade that in as much detail as you can. We've got the tear duct. This is something that a lot of times people will just completely ignore, so you want to make sure that you draw it in. It's going to be done with shading. Just pay attention to the values. Where it's dark, you're going to shade it dark. Where it's light, you're going to shade it light. Both the upper and the lower lid have thickness. So in this angle of this photograph, I can really see the thickness of the lower lid well, this kind of like light pink membrane that's right here. So I want to make sure that I include that. That's another thing that a lot of people will just leave out. I cannot see the thickness because of the angle that this photograph was taken at. I cannot see the thickness of the upper lid. The eyelashes, you want to pay attention to where do they start compared to the iris, and you want to try and stay away from doing that stereotypical eyelash, lash, like CoverGirl eyelashes, lash. You want to look at the eyelashes. You want to think whether they're coming left, right, straight, curled. Sometimes the eyelashes will get clumped together like this area right here, so you would want to try and recreate that clump in the same spot. Notice how then there's a space and then the eyelashes pick up. So as much as I can, I'm trying to see each individual eyelash. Are you going to be able to draw every single individual eyelash perfectly? No, probably not, but the more of them that you can draw and the more accurately you can draw them, the more it's going to look like the person. The eyebrow, when I get ready to draw the eyebrow, I want to pay attention, where does the eyebrow start compared to the tear duct, compared to the eye. Sometimes the eyebrow will actually come past the tear duct, sometimes it doesn't even quite meet the tear duct. And then I want to pay attention, where is the end of the eyebrow, or how far past the end of the eye does the eyebrow come. When I'm drawing the eyebrow, I really pay attention to this negative space that gets created right here. And as I place my eyebrow over the eye, I want my negative space on my drawing to look as similar to the negative space that I can see in the photograph. That will help you to get your placement. The arch and the angle of the eyebrow are all really important if you want it to look like a specific person. So when you draw your eye, you're going to find a photograph of an eye. This could be a photograph that you took. This could be a photograph that you find on Google. And we're just going to be specifically drawing one eye. So when you draw the eye, I want you to draw the eye, and I want you to draw the shading that is around the eye. So we're basically going to be drawing kind of like the skin as well, because we want to start to practice. We're going to do one facial feature at a time, and then we're going to put all the facial features together into a portrait. So we want to also be practicing the skin. The thing that I want you to notice about the skin is, no matter how white you think a person is, they are not the white of the paper. So in this photograph, because of the lighting that they used, the skin is really blown out and probably even lighter than it would be naturally. But even still, it's not like the white of the page. So even in these lightest areas, there's a little bit, using like my 2H pencil, my lightest shading pencil, I've done at least a little bit of shading in those areas that seem really light. And then you're going to try and pay attention to the values. You want to try and notice the subtle little variations. So over here on the cheek, it's darkest as the cheek is kind of like turning away from us. And then that shading like gradually gets lighter as it comes up and around. The two things that you're going to want to also be paying attention to is trying to make your shading as smooth as possible. So remember, when it comes to your shading, you want to have a nice sharp pencil. You want to keep your strokes close together and overlapping, so that as I'm putting my shading down, I'm already creating something that is fairly smooth without touching it with a tortillon or some sort of smudging device, paper towel, some people like to use a Q-tip. So being able to do smooth shading is going to be really important for drawing the face. And then also I want to be working on a gradation, because everything about the face, the shading on the face, is gradations. Light going into dark, going into light, going into medium, going into dark. So for that gradation, I'm going to start with light pressure. And then as I start to come across, I'm going to start to increase my pressure. I could also do this by changing my pencils, but I'm going to show what it would be like if you only have one pencil to draw with. So over on this side where it's going to be darker, I'm pressing harder, and then I'm lightening my pressure as I come across, and I'm trying to make this a gradation from dark on the right side, gradually shifting to a lighter value on the left side without any huge distinctions. I want this to be a gradation, a gradual shift. And this is what's going to make things look round.